All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in today. Today we have a very special guest, Mr. Jan Rong from STEPN, and we're very honored to have you here today, Mr. Jan.
Thank you.
Without further ado, let's have Jan, the co-founder of STEPN, give us a little introduction about the current status with STEPN and Find Satoshi Lab.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I've seen there's many audience from STEPN, so I'll just go brief on that. So overall, I think we have done I think quite okay in the current market condition, and we have actually pretty steady on the user base. It's been pretty much hovering around 150,000 for many months. And we are now actually looking at more of a consider like a new growth plan. So it's basically we will execute once we see the market get better, right? So I think that's roughly the condition. We are looking at we'll talk about that later. So we are looking at various ways of building on top of STEPN. Right, so we have some good ideas about that, and so we have released our roadmap for 2023, and we've seen opportunity but also challenge. For example, as we continue to adding layers on top of STEPN, we promise that we will do the achievement which has been delivered, and also the marathon mode. We are now working on that. And a bit of the general improvement. So the complexity of the product has gone up, right? So we, on one side, we want to do interesting things with intuitive understanding for new users or existing users. On the other side, we also don't want to overcomplicate the product. So we are also very careful of what we bring in to the existing product. And also, we have to also consider, will it be a good idea to release new items? I'll give an example. So let's say with the Rainbow Plus or Legendary Sneaker, will it be a good time for us to release them? I mean, we can do it, but meaning that there will be another race of getting to the next level, and while that causing issues to the ecosystem. So that's another thing we have to consider. And of course, so those are a lot of trade-offs we have to consider for the overall health of the ecosystems. So yes, people are excited for new things, but if that new things means that they have to do additional investment, we feel might not be necessary for the current condition. And the third thing is when we're doing the, let's say, elevator pitch, like very early about STEPN, we say, okay, this is a fitness app or a lifestyle app with social and game element. We've done the game part, and now we are considering the social part. So we have trialed and built considerable amount of additional product. So people were speculating on, the S. We wanted to do it right, meaning that how we deliver a Web3 social product, and while the Web3 social product is what the market need, while there be a financial element into that. So those are things we have to consider, and we've been back and forth on that, but I think we are now figuring out a right pathway to get that done. So that's the social level, and the last point is I think going back to actually your question. So STEPN is part of the Find Satoshi Lab product suite, and as we're looking at from a Find Satoshi Lab perspective, we basically been talk about this quite a long time, that there are still significant amount of infrastructures we need to complete as the backbone of all the retail end product we're going to release, hopefully in the next cycle. Meaning that we are actually quite busy. Either we are busy working with the Versa teams, which is a wallet we invested to have them integrated with our, let's say, DEX or NFT Marketplace. Also, there is a lot we need to complete or optimize on the NFT Marketplace. More we build. So there's still a lot of sort of infrastructure works we have to do. And concurrently, we are now developing a product that we want that be ready until the next bull market. But there might be a while we have to wait, considering the current market conditions. So yeah, that's roughly what we are now. But also we are also hiring. So yes, please, if you have friends or working, send us your CVs.
That's great. Thank you for sharing, Jan. And I'd like to consider that STEPN is definitely a leading player in the move to earn market at the moment, and as well as in the NFT market for sure. So could we take a minute maybe and talk about that? So what do you think of the current NFT market or Web3 market overall? Let's say, do you have some sort of prediction or how you see it?
Okay. So I come from more of a let's say secondary market or investment perspective. I was started my sort of little investment firm back in 2017. When the ICO was sort of very hot. So I always looking at the market from the top down perspective, meaning that the external market has to be accommodating for the startup industry. And then that funnel down to the Web3 startup industry. So Web3 startup is just part of the startup, which also part of a bigger, say, global financial market. And then on top of that will be a lot of factors that influencing that. For example, how much interest rate, are we in an expansion cycle, and if there's any geopolitical issues, so on and so forth. So we cannot treat Web3 as an isolated industry itself. When we do
Definitely.
that, we see what happened with the meme coins recently, the BRC, and those are the native crypto people launching project and but because it is a very niche and isolated event or let's say innovation, it normally require external players or money or attention to support its growth. When we don't have that, when we're having an isolated system, it normally you will run to exhaustion very soon. So which we see from all the Bitcoins, this and that. So yes, the Web3 or the crypto can have some ad hoc growth or innovations, but without the external bigger environment supportive and have attention of money or people, players come in, is usually not be able to sustain itself. So this is the same sort of situation when we're looking at NFT marketplace. The whole environment was so different from, let's say, a year and a half ago, when we see, okay, it's purely speculation, profit driven. So if I get this whitelist and I resell it, you're going to be 10 lakhs. So people are chasing after the narratives. People are excited about the narratives, and people are excited about the profit they get from flipping, from holding, for example. But now we're looking at the whole NFT marketplace. It's all about talking about liquidity provisions and incentivization of providing liquidities or hybrid derivatives on their NFTs. So the whole narrative changed from making profit so easy a year and a half ago to okay, let's forget about making money out of the NFTs. Let's make money out of providing liquidities. So it's a fundamental different. We're looking at if we are comparing between the profit making and liquidity provisions. Yes, profit making are definitely a better form, but we don't have that, right? We don't have the user growth. We don't have the narratives. We don't have the, the expansionary environment. That's the reason the market moved from having the whitelist, releasing project to, okay, let's provide liquidity and incentivize on that by giving tokens. But is this the right way of building an NFT marketplace? That is questionable because what we see working now is only working now because the external environment is bad. But what happened is, we're looking at the whole space totally different. When the Bitcoin was 30,000 from 3,000, you feel very excited. But when the Bitcoin was 30,000, when it dropped from 68,000, you feel like desperate, hopeless. The Bitcoin is still the Bitcoin, the price is still the price, but you feel totally different. This is what we're looking at. So we acknowledge that we will feel down, we will have the bear market recessions, but we also have to acknowledge that when the market gets better, people mindset will change quite quickly. So are we geared for or positioned for the bear market, or are we geared and positioned for the bull market? So that's fundamentally, I think we have to ask the question ourselves, right? So and to our belief, we are geared for the bull market, meaning that what we're building now is what we think gonna work in the next cycle. It might not work at the moment because the market condition doesn't support it, but it will work in the next cycle. And when we're looking at, let's say, going back to, let's say, the success, I would say, minor success of STEPN is the growth normally happens exponentially, right? So you have 1 month of good time, or bull market, you will achieve great success. So meaning that growth is not always linear. When we're looking at all the growth happened, it's always exponential, which means that you just need to have let's say a singularity, right? A single point, and then you grow from there. And 3 months time, you will have millions of users. You're looking at the ChatGPT, right? You have like 100 million users.
Exactly.
So if we do this with the mindset of grow users in a bear market, you will have, I have maybe 10 users today, 100 tomorrow. You'll never make it, right? So, but we have to have the mindset of a bull market, meaning that everything geared for the bull market. When the time is coming, you have the great success, you have the great growth. So that's what we think will work. Might not working now, but it will work in the future.
Well, I think that's a great way to put it. I think it's definitely important to make sure what kind of gear that we're set in and the mindset that we have to put ourselves ready for the markets to come. And now that since you mentioned ChatGPT, I know that recently ChatGPT has definitely been a immense potential, and there are a lot of opportunities for AIGC. And I know that Find Satoshi Lab recently has announced the launch of your AIGC product on Solana blockchain. So, what are the application scenarios of AIGC in the Find Satoshi Labs project, and how do you think it will change the gaming experience or overall experience for the participants?
Sure. So we sort of see the potential of AI summer last year, and we used that mainly for the anti-cheatings. And then just before the ChatGPT, we actually were exploring to use some language model to help us to help out with the customer services, because we have like 10,000 emails every day, right? So we can't manually handle that. And then we start building, and then it's all the ChatGPT come out. So we were even at one point we're discussing that we might even train our own language model, but then we give up because it doesn't provide, yes, it would be cool. It will be a cool feature, but it really doesn't help with our tokenomics or Antinomics, the whole ecosystem. But we do acknowledge that with AIGC, one, you have infinite possibilities of what you can generate. When we talk about like generative tools, like with our generative NFT tools, we call GNT, and it is also a productivity tool to boost one person's productivity. So not only that, if we talk about AI as a bigger idea, there are many other products, for example, Copilot, right? So you can code project yourself. And with ChatGPT, again, people are familiar with that. With again like the image generations tool, you can pretty much one man develop a whole simple game, from coding, from the graphic, from all the narratives or the lines of the conversation in the game. So that give the whole industry that you don't need a team now. You can become a super individual, to run project.
Yeah.
And that is when we realize we might starting to see super individuals start up, like one man team or two man team come into the Web3 space, because I think the Web3 space is actually a very suitable environment for the super individuals. So you are very strong in executions, meaning that you can iterate, you can grow community, and it's almost zero friction when you grow your community. You talk to the user, you talk to the stakeholders. So that I think will potentially be the next form of crypto startups, right? So and with the form, with the way that we build the GNT, we feel it is a wonderful tool of bootstrap project. So when we start our crypto journey, before the Ethereum's smart contract, people can only fork BTC protocols, having like a different form of currencies. But Ethereum enabled, ICO Ethereum enabled that you can create tokens quite easily. And then you have a whole bunch of people starting to release project, tell a story, trying to make the story come true. So it become a way of enable project to I would say fundraise and get support from the community. But then we started to see the whole ICO was not deviated, but taken a different pathway. So if you look, if people from 2016, 2017, a huge amount of projects are funded by are doing crowdfund. There was almost no VC or KOL investment. Is purely just community funded project. But then we're going down to a different route in the 2018, 2019, 2020, where all these big VCs come in and say, okay, I endorse this project. I tell a story, I tell my investment seeds, and then people buys it and people believe in it, and people will praise, all these startup teams, like all-star startup teams. But, I think the pure form of a Web3 native project, it should grow from community, and you don't even need a lot of money to start a project. So what we feel that GNT enables was help the creators to bootstrap the initial audience, and also to release the project's requirement and build up a startup fund, right? They can start building, and with all the tools that Copilot, ChatGPT, Stable Diffusion, GNTs, it can really help them to move from 0 to 1. And then from 1 to 100, yes, then they probably gonna need VC money come in. They're probably gonna need a bigger team. They're probably gonna need 10 hackathons, for example. But just to get them started, we feel having a tool there geared for the bull market, geared for rapid start a project and gain tractions, is vitally important, because speed is everything in this game, right? So in this industry, be able to iterate and deliver things and build a group of audience and build narratives is very important. And now we have all the tools, AI enabled tools. Then it's up to the people running it. You don't have to be a graphic designer. You can still provide good looking, NFT images. And then you can say, all right, that's my Genesis NFT, and I'm gonna probably do some airdrops in the future. So yes, it is empty promises. But if you actually made it, and then you airdrop a whole bunch of things to this user, and that's how you bootstrap your community. So I think that's also the beauty of the Web3, right? So you can do these things almost with zero friction.
Yeah. Definitely. I think, that's super cool that you mentioned. And so how do you think in this scenario, how does Find Satoshi Lab integrate AI technologies with, let's say, with Move to Earn model to create a more unique experience? I'm sure there are a lot of challenges and opportunities involved, isn't it?
So when we looking at, let's say, the Move to Earn or AI, we're looking at, or like what we want to build from more of a bigger picture. We're looking at how the AI help user to generate content, because ultimately helping user generate content and have that content to interact, I think will be that could provide endless possibilities. You can have memes out of it, you can have stories, you can have all the things that human interactions could provide. But we see it's very difficult to integrate AI with more of a move to earn model. And if we force it, it will be something that a little bit out of context or even out of place. So we have gone through various of sort of roadmaps. Let's say we've done experiment. Let's say, okay, what can we do with AI? That is interesting, and interestingly enough, many of ideas we had, I would say almost toward the end of last year, we started to see some projects starting to having the same ideas. I think this is the thing that doesn't matter what we do, what we think, what we come up. I think ultimately people come up with something similar based on the research.
Exactly.
So we've the first idea we had is more like fortune telling through AI, right? So because AI can spin any stories. You can ask you can ask like a totally a wrong question, and then you say rationalize that, and they can rationalize that. So fortune telling will be a perfect fit for AI and gamify, which we feel maybe is one direction, but then we decided not to do it. And then the other idea we had was because we were thinking about a lot about socials, and we said, okay, how about we create like a AI city or something, right? So we have hundreds of thousands of AI bots living their lives in this virtual AI city, and that is also sort of something almost similar to the metaverse idea. And then we have humans come in, and human will do LARPings. Human pretend to be AI, are interacting with AI, right? So you have like a police, AI police say, okay, checking if you are not a bot, right? So we're having these things that always pop out, say are you a bot? You have to prove you are not a bot. But we'll have like a AI police come in and say, okay, prove you are not a bot. Sorry, prove you are not a human, right? So we have to prove you are actually not a human. So we quite like that idea, but then we say, okay, that probably be something that we could do in the future. But once we have more of a metaverse environment, we definitely can do it. And we're looking at how in which platform we can do it, because when we do more of social interactions, and it's a little bit heavy from our end. So we like the idea, so we park it, and we thinking about something light that we can deliver. And then we have a few other ideas which we feel is actually appropriate, which we are now developing. And we also have some idea for the GNT, from more of a gamified version or more. But again, we actually have a developed product guidelines for that. And then we ask the question ourselves, okay, people come in to trade NFT, are they here for the trading experience? And we have to define what is the trading experience. So the question becomes, are people come to, let's say, our NFT marketplace for trade, or are they come here for gamify? So the idea becomes, if we turn the whole place into a gamification platform, that is actually gonna dilute, the reason people come to NFT marketplace. And that's when we realize, for NFT marketplace, we have to do the fundamental things, which is to trade. So, we were trying to throw a lot of like gimmicky things. But then we say, okay, we actually need to improve on the trading experience. People need to find it's fun to trade and make NFTs. And then we sort of are now doing various of improvement on the trading experience. And once that is done, we can actually integrate that with all the other GNT things, and make the NFT fun when you trade and when you make as well. And that will be something that we're actually looking forward. I think in a few weeks time, once we sort out the basics. I think we have tried to experiment a lot of things. People actually don't see it. We actually have to put several ideas on the shelf, because it's not good enough. We build something and say, yeah, it's not good enough. We might just park it there, and we do it again, right? Find something more exciting. So I think now we have the capacity to do AIs. The AI is not necessarily to do with AIGC, right? So there are many other AI technologies. Facial recognition is one, modifications. So that's another technology we're looking at. ChatGPT actually bring the whole AI narrative to the public. And this is actually the second time the AI narrative got into the public face. The first one, I think, is about 6-something years ago, but it didn't get anywhere because the infrastructure wasn't there. I think it's almost similar to the cryptos, right? So when you have the narrative too big and the infrastructure wasn't there, you're gonna collapse at some point down the track. But now AI have the infrastructures. Now we see, the BARD come out, and now we have several open source, AI models. So it will be actually quite interesting to see the ChatGPT might not be in the dominant position anymore, and it's only for like less than half a year. So the whole AI thing, I think, still have a long way to go.
Exactly.
what we're looking at now is cool, but especially with image generations, it's cool and stuff, but it's definitely not commercial grade. When we talk about commercial grade, we talk about like a Disney level, but it will be enough, I think, for the NFT industry to use it to bootstrap users and stuff. So that's the reason to say, okay, let's just start doing this. Be the first one and find if this is the right direction, and if not, we modify it.
I see. So you guys are actually doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
How do you have all the do you even have all the time? I mean, it's super cool, to see that you are taking initiative, especially with the AIs and etc. And as AI technology advances, we know that it's probably going to have a lot of impact, like you mentioned, on the NFT market. So what impact do you think it will have on the creative design and gaming experience of the let's say blockchain gaming industry? Perhaps you could add a bit of your own twist or your own prediction for its future development.
Blockchain game this is the thing, right? So on one side, people think blockchain game is so easy, right? So you slap a traditional game with like NFT tradable platforms and then call it blockchain games. It actually is not. We've seen all the successful traditional game or MMORPG games. People can still trade in-game items even without a centralized or decentralized marketplace. People can find studios to acquire special item for you at a cost. So ultimately, you're looking at blockchain games. Blockchain games, the advantage of blockchain games, let's say transferable items or tradable tokens, we've seen the resemblance in the traditional games, right? So what we think is the advantage of blockchain game is not something that preventing the traditional games from success. So then we ask our question, right? So what is the advantage of blockchain games? And what we think make blockchain games successful is the way that we bootstrap users, and also the user also be part of the development of the blockchain games. And very importantly is that we also have to be able to identify what to implement. So the user can have all the crazy ideas, but then we have to say, all right, what we implement in these? We cannot implement everything. We have to pick. So we have to sort of choose. We have to actually know which one is a good idea, which is not, and to have both the community and the product team steer. And the other thing about the Web3 game is how we can grow the game asset. So that becomes a very tricky part, because if we allow NFT to not broke down in the app, then we'll have inflation happening. And the same thing with tokens. So on one side, people were drawn into Web3 games by the ability to profit, and especially in the early stage, that you get into the game early and you probably will make handsome returns. But if people are coming purely financial driven, they will also leave, because the financial incentives is disappearing. And that's what we are ultimately need to resolve from the blockchain game perspective. So that leads to two directions. One direction is we do not emphasize on blockchain war games, right? So this is the pathway the STEPN choose. So it is a lifestyle fitness app, right? So you help you with, so you pick a whole different genre or industry to work on. So it no longer needed to be purely financial driven. So this is what we see from all our users now. It's less financial driven, but more on achievement, more on have a healthy lifestyles. That's one direction. And the second direction is we probably gonna need to do significant modification on the token or NFT model, meaning that because when we're looking at the more like traditional, right, crypto theory, we know that the token velocity theory, right? So the faster the token being circulating in the industry, in the ecosystems, you potentially looking at inflation, and the inflation will drive to a devaluation of the tokens, and then you will have a whole bunch of issues. So how can we reduce the velocity? And so we potentially could see the Web3 games shift from either a single token model or double token model to an NFT model. So meaning that it will be less liquid, and the NFT will possess some form of sentiment value, and but it still have liquidity, meaning that people can still liquidate and take profit. So we potentially are looking at the possibility of a pure Antinomic Web3 games, so that the impact of, because instant liquidity for a fungible token will lead to too much of a price discovery, and in a way to discourage that actually makes the whole Web3 games last longer. When it lasts longer, you are potentially be able to get more user, you potentially could be more robust, because we've seen so many Web3 games that come up and then achieve great success and then just go, I think the so-called cliche of death spiral, right? So the death spiral happened because the liquidity was abundant, and then it become more of a self-fulfilling prophecy. If everybody sell, thinking that the price is gonna fall, and they will sell, the price will fall, and then people will sell, the price will fall, and that's where you trigger the death spiral. Having a less liquid NFT as Antinomics, and some form of resetting the whole game with condition, while potentially, I think, resolve this issue, right? So these are what we learn from running STEPN, and what we see the issue with Web3 games. One, it has to be playable and engaging to play, that people wanted to pay for it. And two is that you have to have some form of financial incentives, or people can retrieve their investment. And three is that there has to be need for people to exchange resources in the app, and then to continue engage with the game, meaning that it has to be a social element involved. Otherwise, you will just consuming the game narratives or the game storyline, and that will grow tiresome very soon. So if you play like a single player games, from the start to the finish, you might not play it again, because you know all the stories, you've seen all the boss fights. So how you keep grinding in the Web3 games it has to have social element, and that is unescapable, and it has to have a moderate level of liquidity, right? You cannot have too much of liquidity, and that's where we have the panic sales. So we've sort of think a lot on this, like build a proper Web3 game. You know, I think STEPN we call it like a game-like product, game-like app. So it's an app with a game element, but it's not a game. But when we're looking at developing a pure Web3 game, then there are many questions we need to answer and get it right.
I see. I definitely agree with you. I think maybe in the Web3 space, Web3 game is not purely a game, but it has a lot of other benefits, like you said, incentives and all the social interaction and etc. So I think here is my last question to you, Jan. So how do you view STEPN's competitive position within the industry that you have described just now? Perhaps it's gaming or lifestyle, or so. What factors do you think it will contribute to STEPN's success?
Okay, so I've invested in project and I've seen what happened in cycles. I personally gone through 2 cycles. One observation is what seemed to be the popular narrative, the popular story from the last cycle will hardly attract any user in the next cycle, right? So each cycle project have very distinct trait, and I've been talking the narrative a lot because the narrative is what driving the user attention, is what driving unfortunately the speculation side of the people, and if you are not in that narrative, you are not in the in the game, right? So people say if the IDO with Ethereum stakings was really really hot, the IDO was a narrative. Sorry, LDO is a narrative. Now the meme coin is a narrative. So, but what we see is that people are so focused in one single product, they hardly be able to shift their direction to pre-position themselves in the new narrative, meaning that they will be sort of outcast, in the new cycle. They hardly become relevant. So, and that's where we sort of take a step back from STEPN, and we now focus on FSL. The reason is we want to position ourselves in the next narrative cycle, and then we'll build product that's suitable for that narrative. But with STEPN, you'll be always as more of a user acquisition tool because people need exercise, and people can only earn GMT from STEPN. So STEPN have this very unique position, but STEPN is definitely not shift the STEPN itself into something. Let's say, for example, social. If we build social, are we building in the STEPN or building out the STEPN? That becomes a question. And if we build outside of the STEPN, it has to be, it can also be STEPN something, right? So it could still have a relationship with STEPN, right? So you still have the inter-product connectivities. So what I'm trying to say is we constantly sort of foresee or forecast what will be the next the main attention from the user will be, right? So, and that has to be sustainable. It cannot be like a meme coins, right? So, and then we build product to suit for that. So keep ourselves constantly relevant to the industry, and that is what we see the whole industry is lacking. to utilizing a single token in various of products. So going back to your question of our competitive sort of positioning in the industry is, if we can build a range of consumer end product, because there's not many consumer end product, especially when it comes to social product or game product, well interconnected, integrated with each other, meaning that people can, like Apple, right? You have iPod, you have like a MacBook, you have iPhone. So if you have all of these, and things can interchangeably move from the iPhone into the Mac, right? So we try to build like more of a inclusive ecosystems. So definitely, yes, firstly, it will be only us building the product. But now we have invested in other NFT project, for example, or other product. We also want to get them into our ecosystems. So I think it's more of a inclusive ecosystems that not only we building product to provide utility for the GMT, which is the token, also other project utilize GMT. When it comes to, let's say, they start a project, use GMT to come up with like 1,000 of collections, so this is where we build more, because in more you can trade NFTs in GMT. So this is the unique position we have to ultimately grow the utility of GMT, right? So I think we want to set up a new standard, of how you should run a Web3 project and stay relevant in the industry for long times by having new product and then having new product interconnected with old product and build your inclusive ecosystems. And to answer your second question, is when it comes down to the factor that affect, let's say, the success, I always see, or I always believe that be able to time the get in the industry or get into certain things with the right time is certainly very important.
Yes.
And be able to foresee it take a lot of, I think, trial and errors, and also take a lot of, I think, monitors on the overall, micro environment, and only that be able to bring, the money, the people, the players, the attentions into the product. Because without this, yes, you can achieve success, but it will be a very, I think, more like an uphill battle, right? So because you don't have the things that can help you from an external environment. And also, as we said, a lot of things about attentions. Attention is what is scarce in this industry. We only have a certain amount of attention, and we divide them into a little fraction of part, and because there's so many things happening on the social media, everything is bombarded by informations. So we need attention to be contagious. We need one user attention could be passed on to a range of people, also to pay attention to us. So without, yes, we can build narrative, we can build attention, but if the attention cannot be contagious and then scale, right? You will not be able to achieve a certain threshold, So from what I observe on all the success project on the market, all the projects have to sort of gone through more of a struggle period, right? And then once they get through a threshold, and then it's just exponential growth. So you need a sizable of audience, to get through the attention threshold. You have to have enough people to talk about you on social media, just to get other people's attention, if you have like 100 users, you'll become like a background noise to to the general like crypto trader, right? Normally it's filled with shit posting and memes and noise. So it has to be sizable to spread and to influence other people, and that is based on one, your project design, your product design. Does it have mechanics enable that? And two is through more of a marketing gigs that you run, for example, or give away, referrals, for example. And the third point, I think the factor that affect the success is the product also have to be scalable. We have seen also a lot of Web3 games or other projects say, oh, it worked perfectly with 100 users, but you are very lucky in 1,000 users, 10,000, 100,000. So the difficulty of having a product that scale from the back end is actually quite difficult, and you can, without I think strong technical support and depth support from the back end, very soon a product can grow to the threshold, because you'll get laggy, right? So if you have, let's say, over 1,000 people play at the same time, and it's also appeared to be the case for all the layer ones. So in the test environment you have like 10,000 TPS, but in the raw environment you have like 4, right? So we have seen things like that. So without the scalability from the server, from the blockchain, and also from the tokenomics, or Antinomics, for example, for the typical 10K collections, yes, you will have 10K collectors or support, and then what? Yeah, you're gonna airdrop another 10K collection to this 10K collectors, So with all the NFT project, ultimately they have to think, how do I grow outside of the 10K collections? And we have seen a lot of NFT projects that doing this. I'm not gonna issue a token because token holders could be more than 10,000. So, but then what are you gonna do with tokens, right? So it become, I think, more of an afterthought after afterthought. And then if there's no holistic plan, which is, I think, the fourth important factor to affect success, is that if you just go along the flow and see what other people is doing, you say, you look like a good idea, without knowing the logic, and you copy that, you're not gonna make it, right? So I think yes. So having a holistic plan and a lot of contingency plan as well, because things will go wrong. Things always go wrong. So so it is, I think if we say we probably want to put maybe 70% of the energy into planning, and then 30% into execution, because if you have a very good planning, you don't need perfect executions, right? Because a lot of things will be covered in the plan, and also the contingency plans. So I think we've had a pretty good blast in 2022. We've learned a lot of things, it's like what Frank said from the DeGod, we learn some shit, and we're gonna do some new shit. So we have gathered, I think, a lot learnings from running both Antinomics and the Tokenomics, and we've seen what both model can do, and then we're basically thinking that social product and Web3 games, I think, are still our strengths. So we will basically building things at the background and releasing it once we feel the environment is more appropriate. So everybody is now talk about the rate hike in June, and the repercussions of all this CPI, PPI, PMI, all this stuff. But we have seen a significant reduction on the impact of all these figures to the economy. because we feel that the economy more on on the recession side, right? So I think the impact of this on all these figures starting to know as important toward the second half of this year, and hopefully that we'll see the market recover somewhere next year, beginning of next year. So we can always hope, but from a bigger cycle on the Bitcoin side, supposedly we should have a better market next year, but so nobody sort of can be sure of what's going to happen on the macro side. I don't think the Fed will reduce their the rate anytime sooner, so we will stay high for longer, meaning that the whole external environment might not get better until the Fed think it meet its mandate, which the two mandate effective employment, and then reduce on the inflations, right? So if they feel like, okay, now the mandate has been met, we probably going to see the interest rate going to go down, and then then people say, oh, interest go down, you have an actual recession happen, but let's hope not. So so there,
fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But I think after I mean, it's almost like like a whole year from the Bitcoin dropping from the top, and normally not trying to speculate, but normally have like a half year of bull market or a year and a half of bear market, so maybe have another half year from historical perspective. So let's finger cross. I think
Exactly.
we will need another maybe 6 months to have some demo be able to release all the new product we're building. So
cool. Well, Eli, like you said, yeah, exactly. I think it's really hard to tell when exactly will market get better and etc. But what we can do is that we can prepare ourselves for that, and hoping things that will turn out better, and at the same time do a lot of planning, and putting in the right gear, right?
Actually, just one more thing. When we looking back from 2020, we always questioning, oh, this is the bull trap, and we always doubt when the bull market comes, people will question if this is a real bull market, and then they will miss the initial sort of growth. And I mean, it's good to take money out, but I think it's also important to stay, I think have some position, right, to stay relevant, because if you 100% taking the money out, then you might be less sensitive to the market change, and then when the actual bull might come in, you always like doubt, oh, bull trap, and then Bitcoin go back to like 60,000 again. So it's, oh shit, I should buy some. I should buy some like when the Bitcoin was 60,000, right? So we have seen people constantly regret themselves, but this is sort of the beauty of this industry.
Exactly, that's what fascinates, I think, all of us. Well, thank you so much, Jan. Thank you for sharing all the insights and all the plans that you have. I think our listeners here today, they definitely learned more about how the industry is going, as well as how STEPN and FSL is doing. For those who joined later, last but not the least, STEPN and FSL is hiring. So if you think you have some talents that you can bring onto the table, make sure you stay connected. So how can they apply? Through your website, or is there a specific channel that they can tune into?
I got an incoming call. Sorry, I got cut off a bit.
No worries. No, I was just telling the users who joined later. that if they have any talents that they can bring to the table, that and you said you guys are hiring, so I was just saying if there's a special channel that they can tune into or through your website to the application.
They can DM me on Twitter or Shitty or Mabel or Jerry, or there's a career button from our STEPN website.
Cool. Great. Once again, thank you guys for tuning in today. We had Jan from STEPN, the co-founder of STEPN, who shared amazing insights with us. And thank you once again, Jan, for being with us here today. And I think it's time to conclude this session.
Awesome. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
See ya.